Caleb, I'm interested to see where you go here, but you had this idea over the weekend how there were actually optimistic signs in Tennessee's loss on Saturday. What optimistic signs do you see?
So my optimistic signs is, look, it's not like Missouri is a horrible team. They're actually a pretty decent team. Again, they beat Iowa State, who was number 12 at the time in the SEC Big 12 Challenge. Missouri, my big concern for Tennessee all year was, even when they were up to number 2, was that they were doing it with grinding it out games, toughness, and defense. And I'm like, in March, you run into a team that's just not going to miss. They're just not going to miss from the outside, no matter what you do. And can you hang with them? Well, Missouri played that game on Saturday. Let's just be honest, Dave. Missouri didn't miss at all. And Tennessee still should have won that game. You can be concerned about Vescovi missing the front end of that 1-on-1 a second time and it being in his head. Clutch genes matter. I agree with everybody on that. And clearly, what we're realizing is Vescovi is not clutch, and that's a problem. But the fact that they can hang when somebody is shooting red hot on them like that is something I didn't see them being able to do. Julian Phillips left the game with an injury. Triple J was out. And so I think that that's something that we didn't see from them in the past. Again, my thing is, I've been saying the whole time, everybody's concerned about Tennessee defense. I don't care about defense in college basketball. People need to get that through their heads. Defense is the stupidest thing to worry about in college basketball. It doesn't matter. Okay. I only care about your ability to score. And Tennessee did show that they can score when another team is red hot shooting the ball. So that matters. Vescovi not being clutch also matters. So that's where you draw a concern. He's turning into, dare I say, I'm going to invoke the name J.J. Redick at Duke. J.J. Redick is the worst clutch performer ever. But Vescovi's not as good as Redick was.
I tell you, Caleb, you're probably a little too optimistic for my taste. And let's face it, both of us, with the way college basketball plays out, could be dead wrong. We've seen teams flounder in February and have success in March. We've seen teams soar in February and get knocked out of the first 2 rounds. That's just the way college basketball is. So I take all of this with a grain of salt. I guess my own opinion. My opinion is this team hasn't found itself as of the middle of February. And that to me is incredibly disheartening, because this team has too much talent not to know where it needs to go in clutch moments. And if it can't go Vescovi's direction, then I've got serious questions about their ability to win clutch games in March. So it's funny, you and I kind of flip-flopped. I was on the wait and see approach last week with this basketball team, and they could get things turned around. Now I'm more along the lines of this team is ripe for a first round or second round exit. And I thought that they would still make the Sweet 16 last week. They would put things together. The Auburn win was still a ranked opponent win. I was playing all the positive cards. I don't have positive cards like you do after Saturday. I mean, I appreciate where you're coming from, and I can see that, and the ability to hang with a high-scoring team. Just to me, I don't think that they have an identity. What is their identity right now, Caleb?
Oh, they don't. They don't. And part of the reason they don't have an identity is because of injuries. But Rick Barnes tried to make their identity defense and toughness and being able to play inside out. And as you and I talked about, the out part of inside out was not happening for them. And I think it did happen. I think if Rick Barnes is smart, he sticks with small ball the rest of the way out. You know, he uses Tyree Key, Vescovi, has just one big in there at a time, whether that's ncaa or Julian Phillips if he's healthy, and just play small ball. And I think that could be their identity. And he should stop worrying about them wasting their energy on defense. Defense doesn't matter. Defense doesn't win championships, guys.
But can you change that in February?
No, you can't. And Rick Barnes won't change his philosophy. Rick Barnes is very committed to this philosophy, and there's a reason he's only made one Final Four.
Smoky Mountain Red said shooting threes is their identity, live and die by it. Here's the problem, though. They're more likely to die by it because defensive players on the perimeter stick to the outside and don't crash down and help in the post. So really, we could say it's the three-pointers and missing the three-pointers, but to a large extent, I mean, they don't have the production in the post to scare people.
That you're right. That is a big problem. Is Nakamura is more of a stretch four, so he wants to pull you out for the mid range a little bit, which doesn't help if you play inside out that much. And Plavchik is just he's gotten exposed. I just don't think you can rely on Plavchik right now, and I don't think Plavchik is that great of a passer. Half of being a great when you play inside out basketball with the post players is not just scoring when they leave you open, but being able to pass and kick it out to the guy on the perimeter that's open and play. I don't think any of Tennessee's inside guys are really that good at passers, honestly, and that's a huge problem.
One of the things I've noticed about Plavchik, easy for me to say, watch this the next time, okay? When he feels as if he's going against a brick wall and he can't convert in the post, he looks to pass, and when he brings his head up, he is either unsure of where to pass or everybody's covered. Notice that just in his body language, Caleb. So I don't know if that's him, and you said he doesn't kick it out as well, or if that's just they're well covered.
And he also puts the ball on the ground way too much when he catches it in the post.
Amen. Why? Why must he dribble?
I don't know. It is one of the worst habits that you see with big men in basketball that keep them from developing. Is if you catch it and you're in the post like this, you pivot and then you try to score and you keep the ball up or you try to do a pump fake. The minute you put the ball on the ground, it changes everything. And it's basketball. If you're a big man, that's like basketball 101 that you learn when you're 14 to not do.
Let me ask you, what happens if Rick Barnes with this team, where would you put this team in terms of talent in the entire nation?
I mean, in terms of just talent, I would say top 20. But when you put talent and combined with what should be solid experience, I would say top 10. Barnes has never been able to mesh 5-star freshman talent with experience. He's never been able to do that well.
Okay, so experience plus talent equals top 10.
Mm-hmm.
If this team, according to you, and I agree, if this team does not go deeper than the second round of the tournament, does that affect Rick Barnes' decision-making and how long he wants to coach? Does that affect Danny White's thoughts on how long he wants Rick Barnes to coach?
I don't think it should affect Danny White's decision. It may affect Rick Barnes. And the reason I don't think it should affect Danny White's is, look, it's Tennessee basketball. I mean, the goal of hiring Rick Barnes was to have a coach who would always have you in the NCAA tournament. You're not Kentucky. You're not looking for a coach that's going to get you to the Final Four every 4 years or something like that. You're looking for a coach that is going to keep you relevant. Now, I will say the problem is, are you looking for relevancy or are you looking to make sure that you still sell tickets and sell out games? Because I will say if you're constantly doing this in the NCAA tournament, eventually, apathy sets in with the fan base. And that would be a problem. And I don't know how you...
And that with the Lady Vols.
Yeah, that is. It's that way with the Lady Vols. That's true.
If your goal is to sell tickets, that sounds like Doug Dickey to me in the 90s.
Did he even try to sell tickets?
Well, arguably not, but the point was just to hire somebody who has a certain appeal. Like Wade Houston, for instance, was known. He was going to bring in Allen, and he was a great recruiter. So I don't think that anybody thought that they were going to win a Final Four at any point. But you did have an appeal of what should have been an athletic team. Well, it was with Allen, nobody else. But yeah, this basketball team right now does not appear to have an identity. Again, things could turn on a dime. It's March. I see that. But yeah, I just wonder how long Rick Barnes wants to pound his head against the not making the Sweet 16 wall.
I also have to say this. Because it was the hottest form of basketball in the mid-2000s. After Gary Williams won a national championship at Maryland. But the Dr. Tom Davis coaching tree is getting figured out. You guys saw Bruce Pearl over the weekend and Auburn lose to Alabama. They didn't look like they were on Alabama's level, quite honestly. And I'm thinking Rick Barnes, Bruce Pearl. Rick Barnes comes from the Gary Williams coaching tree. Gary Williams and Bruce Pearl both come from the Tom Davis coaching tree. which is partially up tempo, but there's a commitment to the flex offense on what they all do. Running the flex is not like the motion. You run the same set every time down the floor. Every time down the floor, you run the same set offense in the same set formations, like the triangle. I don't think that works anymore. I don't think you can run the same formations on offense anymore in basketball, or have the same setup every time you go down the court and react to the defense. And I think Rick Barnes and Bruce Pearl's systems have been figured out. I'm going to be honest. Everybody talks about Bruce Pearl's greatness because of what he did when he first got to Tennessee. He's been to one Final Four in his career. That's it.
Well, and don't forget this. He had a special couple of guards in Lofton and Jawan.
Yes.
I mean, that just kind of gets, oh, yeah, he did everything. He X's and O's it up. No, they're pretty good guard play. I mean, that was pretty strong.
And at the time, nobody in the SEC played tempo. Remember, you were playing half court, grinded out defensive basketball, and then you had to prepare for Tennessee on a Wednesday. That's just going to go nonstop up tempo. Not everybody in the SEC is playing up tempo. So you're not really it's not a change of pace to face Bruce Pearl or Rick Barnes.
Smoky Mountain Red said if we're Rick Barnes to step down or at some point, he is going to retire at some point. Who do you go after as a coach? I'll be honest with you. I hate that question. And I love you, Smoky Mountain Red, but I hate that question because Tennessee should be able, especially now, to go after whoever they want to as a coach. They don't have to go hire a Jeremy Pruitt, to use the football terminology. They don't have to hire a guy that was in Michael Jordan's wedding and Buzz Peterson. They don't have to settle. I think they have everything with the Pratt Pavilion, the workout facility, Thompson Bowling Arena. I think you're on a high right now. So yeah, if you have to go out and hire somebody because Rick Barnes decides to retire, I don't think there are any limitations. I mean, things aren't going grand for John Calipari in Kentucky. I'd give him a call if Rick Barnes said he wanted to retire in April. I'd give John Calipari a call. There's nobody I would be afraid to call if I'm Danny White with the way Tennessee's athletic program is going.
Yeah, and also Danny White is the master at scouting up-and-coming coaches. And so I don't think that Danny White, historically I used to do home run hires, but I don't think Danny White needs a home run hire. He knows the right hire. I've seen it, and I have enough proof because look, I used to think you go for the big hire, big names coach, but with Danny White, I say you go for the up-and-comer because Danny White knows who that is, and he finds them better than anybody I've ever seen. Which, I mean, a good debate in the past would be like, looking at home run hires versus up-and-comer hires Tennessee has made. In 1976, I'm pretty sure Johnny Majors felt like a home run hire, didn't he? Just won a national championship at Pitt, was coming home,
no doubt,
and never really lived up to the home run.